Hello and welcome to a tier list video, the most original content on MMA YouTube specifically. And today's tier list is going to be the most undeserved UFC title shots. Now, I want to just clarify, I'm not saying that these guys are undeserving and they didn't work hard for the title shot and stuff like that, but usually the UFC has a certain way of giving title shots to people, or even not giving title shots to people. Bilal Muhammad, an example. We all hate him anyway. Just kidding, Bilal. But you're really boring. Like, super boring. Gotta work on that. I'm just saying they're undeserving in the general, like, way that people get title shots in the UFC, okay? Enough explaining. Starting with Max Holloway and Frankie Edgar. Now, Frankie Edgar had lost badly by knockout to Brian Ortega, and then he beat Cub Swanson. Cub Swanson kind of on the way down. This was Frankie Edgar's, like, third title shot at featherweight. But for me, I'm just gonna say, okay. Third shot at the title. Frankie Edgar is a legend. Okay. Next, Sean O'Malley, Chito Vera, one that happened recently. This one, obviously, there's a couple in here. Or is there any in here that... Yeah, there's one more in here where it's, oh, I have a win over the guy a while ago, and now I deserve a title shot because of that. I don't know if that's proper logic, but sometimes that is the logic that gets used. Vera had that logic in this case. He was on a 7-fight win streak, I'm pretty sure, 6 or 7, capping that off with the knockout win over Dominic Cruz. And then he fought Corey Sandhagen and lost decisively. Came back, fought Pedro Munoz and won, and then got a title shot, even though Sandhagen was above him. Merab was above him. He was ranked number 6, only coming off of one win. There were better title contenders, but I think timing-wise it worked out for him because Sandhagen had hurt his arm or something. I don't know what was going on with Merab. That's where it would be in kind of wild for me. But just because you beat him before, does that make it, okay? I don't know. Tier lists don't matter. This is such a stupid video. I don't know why you're watching it. Oliveira versus Chandler. This is on Chandler's end, obviously. He beat Dan Hooker and then got an immediate title shot. Another one where it's like, timing-wise, kind of made sense because... like, who else would fight for it? Poirier should have been fighting for it, but he wanted the McGregor rematch. And then he fought Oliveira later. Obviously lost because Oliveira is the GOAT. We don't need to talk about that. But yeah, Chandler winning one fight in the UFC against Dan Hooker, who was on a little bit of a win streak, but then lost to Poirier. Knockout win, I guess, in the first round over Dan Hooker. Does that get you in a title shot? I think circumstantially it kind of worked and it was a good fight, so okay. Yeah, that's how I feel about that one. Randy Couture and Brock Lesnar. Now this one is kind of the story of Brock Lesnar just being a giant star, but he went 1-1 in the UFC. He lost to Frank Mir and then he beat Heath Herring, who was like not even ranked at the time or something, or really low ranked. I don't even know if there were rankings back then. But I think Heath Herring was 2-2 in the UFC, and Brock beat him, and then got a title shot against Randy Couture. Obviously, he ended up winning it. And the last 3 people have all lost it. But even if you end up winning it, that doesn't make you undeserving in the terms of like, oh, this is how they usually give title shots, and you're undeserving in that way. But even if you win, it's like, oh, well, he did deserve it because he won. No, it's not how it works. Lesnar didn't deserve this. He was 1-1 in the UFC, and just because he was a big star, that kind of gave it. So that's where I'm going to say kind of wild. That's kind of wild. 1-1 in the... Give him one more win against, like... And no, the other thing that made that kind of wild is that Nogueira was, like, the interim champion at the time, and then they fought, and then afterwards, Nogueira fought Mir for the... like, an interim champion defense or some crazy shit like that. And then Mir won. It was weird. So maybe I'll put that at whoa, where'd that come from? Because the fact that there was an interim champion and they just threw Brock Lesnar in there anyway, kind of like what they're doing to Stipe Miocic, John Jones thing right now. It's like, what? So I'm going to say, whoa, where'd that come from? That just moves it up a little bit. But Brock Lesnar's star power kind of justifies it. So, yeah. Adesanya Romero. Romero was coming off of 2 losses, I believe. I think it was Costa. And then before that, was it Whitaker? Or no, he knocked out... No, it was. It was Costa Whitaker. Or Whitaker Costa. It was a close fight with Costa. But he was coming off of 2 losses. And just because Costa was hurt and Adesanya wanted a title defense and he wanted to fight Romero, they gave it to Romero. I'd say kind of wild. Not whoa, where'd that come from? Because, like, Adesanya asked for it. No one else was really there. So they gave it to Romero. Cool. Whatever. Edwards Covington. Covington, this was his second title shot off of just beating one guy and then sitting around and waiting forever. He did it before, and then he beat... Like, he lost to Usman, beat Woodley, sat around, got Usman again, beat Masvidal, sat around. Like, the fact that it had happened already and his win was over Masvidal, he did not deserve this title shot over even guys like Shavkat and, like, yeah. It just, no, didn't make sense. And sure, he weighed in for the backup fighter or whatever. Stupid. Kind of wild. There's 3 and kind of wild. You're probably wondering when I'm going to put something in the absolute worst. I'm also wondering that. Actually, no, I'm not. I know exactly when I'm going to do that. Pantoja versus Usyk, the one that is happening this Saturday. I think this just fits in whoa, where'd that come from? Because Pantoja didn't have an opponent, and, like, okay, they needed someone to defend the title in Brazil. You were maybe thinking, oh, give it to, like, Kai Kara France, but he's coming off of a loss, I guess. So that'd be kind of whoa, where'd that come from? But to go all the way down and fetch Steve Usyk, who's had 3 fights in the UFC, and is ranked number 10, that's a whoa, where'd that come from? If Steve wins, still undeserving that he got the title shot in the first place. But, hey, anything can happen. Jones versus Sonnen. This is the one that is in the absolute worst. I think Sonnen was coming off of a loss to Anderson Silva. And before that, I think he had 1 win, and then he lost to Anderson Silva before that. Like, he was 1-2 in his last 3. And he had never fought at light heavyweight before in the UFC. And he gets John Jones instantly just because he's Chael Sonnen and he's a big name. And he got ran through in the first round. The absolute worst title shot, for sure. No question about it. This one, though, Bisping versus Henderson, is also up there as the absolute worst. Because, yes, Henderson had beaten Bisping in the past and it was a big, famous one. But Henderson was at the end of his career, and I think the only reason they could even justify it is because he was coming off of a knockout win that was pretty dope against Hector Lombard, where he, like, back elbowed him and then smashed him with 2 elbows. It was sick. But Dan Henderson was about 75 years old when he got the title shot. And over Whitaker, over Romero, there were all these guys. I think Whitaker was even interim champion. Maybe not at this point, but he was going to be. Like, there were way more deserving guys than Dan flippin' geriatric Henderson. And he got the title shot. I think I want to put it up there with the absolute worst. That's my tier list. If you made it to the end of this video, I don't know, why did I do a tier list video? And how did you make it to the end of it? Jeez. So unoriginal.